Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an immediate family member, an enemy, and anyone in between. I appreciate all the likes, all the views, all the comments, and there's a few bits and pieces that I didn't really speak about yesterday, which, sort of are here over the week. I figured I'd give my take on it, see what you guys think. Hoping it won't be too long, but you know me already, so no promises on that one. But without further ado, let's get into it. So Matt Truman and DAZN have signed a 3-year extension for the US and Mexico part of their partnership, which basically means that now they've got license to run shows up until May 2026. I guess that's good for our US counterparts. I mean, I don't know how exactly that affects things over there. I'm assuming the headway that they're kind of making into the Mexico market at the moment is a good thing. Getting a lot of the local talent there, the young up-and-comers, and maybe even the local stars, a bit older in the tooth. The one thing I will say is those Mexican events, even though I normally don't know 90% of the people that are on the cards, they are very entertaining. Mexican fighters for the most part are very much pressure fighters, come forward sluggers, and they just trade lever until one person falls, and a lot of the time that one person doesn't actually happen to fall, and they just end up getting a good solid scrap for like between 6 to 10 rounds normally, depending on how long they go. So that in itself is a good thing. The America part, I mean, look, you've got people like, I guess, Jesse Bam Rodriguez over there at the moment, but he's sort of like the biggest star realistically out of sort of, I guess, the new crop. You got Canelo, but he's a fight by fight, essentially he's a free agent, like just loaning his services out to the zone, so there's no guarantee that he's going to stay there after his next fight, or even the Dimitri Bivol fight after that. So yeah, outside of Jesse Bam Rodriguez, I guess they've got to try and build up a couple more big credible names on that side of things. No idea what's happening with Virgil Ortiz, who obviously there was high hopes for. William Zepeda, I guess, is probably a guy on that his own platform that could potentially have a following in the future. Jaime Munguia, he was a guy that maybe they was going to tout to do some big things, but matchmaking poor, so you don't really know if he's going to be that guy for the Hispanic market. Edgar Berlanga, Puerto Ricans obviously will have those people behind him, but his ceiling is very limited, so no idea what his trajectory would be. Ryan Garcia, you would say, would be like the obvious guy, but we don't know what his contractual ties are at the moment with Golden Boy and DAZN as a platform. He could potentially be a free agent at this point, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out who's going to essentially spearhead the project over in those markets, moving forward, unless it's just about trying to put on credible 50-50 fights that people can get interested in. But look, you've got the extra 3 years in there, which is good for I guess trying to attract new stars or new talent, because you can say, well, look, we've got a platform, we've got this budget, like you've seen what we've done with X, Y, and Z, you've seen the kind of money you can make over here, you've got a global reach, so people all over the world will get to know you, and yeah, maybe that's all it needs. But I guess we'll see moving forward. But yeah, good job to Matt Truman, I suppose. It will be interesting to see what they kind of do, and then DAZN as a platform moving forward. Good luck to them. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that. Leave your comments down below and let me know your thoughts. Now, in the previous segment, I briefly used the name of Ryan Garcia, saying that he could potentially be a free agent. No idea what's going on with him, DAZN and Golden Boy Promotions at the moment. Well, he has officially parted ways with Joe Goosen earlier on this week. He will no longer be training under Joe Goosen. The reasons for that are unknown at this point in time. If it's anything to do with him losing or getting beat by Tank, I don't know if that's a fair thing to happen, because obviously we know, look, every time that someone loses, it's the trainer, the first person that goes. But from what we understand, there's two potential issues that have contributed to him getting beat, right? One was the rehydration and the catch weight clause, and the other one was this potentially damaged or bruised rib that occurred during sparring. Well, neither of those two situations would have anything to do with Joe Goossen. That's not something he can control, and that's not something that he can inherently say in the corner gave you a bad bit of advice that cost you the fight. Now, as I was watching the fight, and I did watch it with the sound and everything, I heard a lot of the comments that he was making in the corner when they did pan to them, and a lot of the time it was basically a case that Ryan was not listening to what he was told. He came out in the first round, kept behind the jab, won that round quite comfortably, and was boxing effectively, and then immediately just threw the game plan out the window in the second round, even after being told that he was working the game plan perfectly in the first round and to continue in that vein. So it's not really something you can blame Goossen for, but it is what it is. It happened. So we'll have to see what's next on the horizon. Plot twist. It appears that he has now reached back out to Eddie Reynoso and asked to, I guess, if he could have a meeting, or if he can, come back and join that camp again. Now, I actually think he was doing quite well under Eddie Reynoso, but I think the issue is that Ryan overall just doesn't have, I feel like there's a certain work ethic that he lacks when it comes to being an elite guy. He looks like the kind of person that seems to feel because he's already a star, maybe outside of boxing, that means that he can kind of cut corners to get to his end goal. Hence why he jumped into the Gervonta Davis fight before having the necessary other fights to build himself to that level. The Devin Haney fight, the Jojo Diaz fight, the Jorge Linares fight, and all of these fights that he was supposed to have prior, which Devin Haney ended up taking because he turned them down. So will it be any different if he was to go back there? Would he now, be more willing to train on his own apart from the days when, Eddie comes in? Or would he be able to go to the gym earlier and say, all right, this is what the plan is. Let me do my pre-work until Eddie comes in. Would Eddie give him any more time than he did last? He probably would give him less because he maybe wouldn't trust him. So it's a very weird sort of situation to want to go back to, and I guess there would have to be a lot of proving yourself to this trainer before he started investing that proper time in you. And does Ryan want to do that? It's all, it's weird to think about, but it's all food for thought. So to me, it's sometimes, people say, when you end a relationship, never go back, because it will never be the same, or it will be the same and you'll end up doing the same things that you done last time. But I'm interested to see how it goes. So yeah, I will leave that there and just kind of find out what's next and how it moves and shakes. But yeah, very strange one. Richard Riakporhe read up with Sky Sports and Boxer, signed what they called a long-term deal. Now, whenever boxers say that, we don't quite know what that means these days, because they said they had a long-term deal with Joseph Parker and he fought one fight on the platform and then bounced. They said they had a long-term deal with Jack Catterall and he never fought on the platform at all. I don't know what particularly that means, but he is looking for Arsene Goulamarian as his next fight, with a potential, I guess, Lawrence Okoli, Chris Billum-Smith winner clash after that, and to have a big unification at cruiserweight. I mean, it's a good move. All the relevant cruiserweights are there. There's no point going to Matchroom or Queensbury. Queensbury don't have any that I'm aware of, and every cruiserweight that Matchroom has is a prospect, which he is above that level right now. He does need to be looking at the world titles. Jordan Thompson, Chevron Clark, like these guys ain't really, on that same, the same trajectory just yet. So that would be punching down at this precise moment in time. It makes total sense. good luck to Richard, and yeah, I'm keen to see sort of what happens with him next, but get the activity back up, because that was what was doing it for him, and let's see if he can cement his spot as the face of the division on Sky Sports and Boxer. Last but not least, so it's fight week for both Joshua Buatsi and Canelo Alvarez. Now, I've heard a lot of people, not just people on YouTube channels, but in general, just conversations, a lot of people saying they had no idea that Joshua Buatsi was fighting this week, and that is a damning indictment on Sky Sports specifically, because you know, he made a big song and dance about being on the biggest platform with the biggest reach, and you ain't even got to tell people how to find you, they'll just know what the deal is. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of the views that boxers get outside of someone like Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, you know, sort of like the big guys, whereby they're pretty much going to be in the news, it will be on the sort of shoulder programming that you get during fight week. So it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to kind of say that, oh, well, Sky ain't doing their job because I didn't even know Buatsi was fighting until recently. But the truth is, you know now. So ultimately, even if you didn't know last week or the week before, well, you know now, and you knew at least 3 or 4 days in advance of the fight. Now, the only way that becomes an issue in terms of only just realizing or remembering he's fighting now is if you were supposed to buy tickets and the tickets are sold out, which they're not. Or, you know, like you wanted to go to the show and maybe, oh, like you've double booked because you forgot that this was happening because no one reminded you. So in that point, I could understand someone saying there needed to be better promotion. It should have been highlighted a couple weeks back that he was fighting next, or after their very last event, it should have been there, or every time that in the last event, it should have been programming, 2 weeks to go, 2 weeks to go. But being that it's not a world title fight, it's a comeback fight, it's a tune-up fight, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a big marquee one where you're gonna dedicate like weeks and weeks of promo to it. Realistically, you're gonna generate a week's worth of content, which is the week of the fight, see the numbers it does there, and then as the bigger fight goes, you go to the next step, So I don't take too much issue with the fact that it hasn't been greatly promoted, but obviously the one thing it does do is make his comments about the whole DAZN platform and no one knowing that I'm fighting, etc., be a little bit look a little bit silly when, you know, people didn't know the week of the fight that you were fighting and you was on Big Bad Sky. But that being said, the press conference was a little earlier on today. Nothing real meaty to take away from it. Pavel Stepien doesn't speak English, so there was no real back and forth between him and Josh. Josh is doing his usual, you know, just business, I'm a humble guy thing. I'm not going to say it's a routine because I genuinely believe that for the most part that's him. But yeah, there was, I mean, the biggest chat throughout the day, I suppose, was Ben Whittaker and is it Jordan Grant? I think it's Jordan Grant. That was the only sort of needle back and forth you got. But even that, you know, Ben Whittaker in his third fight, more than likely you would expect that they're not going to put him in with someone that they think is going to give him a real hard test at this point in the career. So yeah, it's a bit of a formality, to be totally fair. Yeah, the card as a whole, look, there's 2 fights on there that I think are fairly decent. One was the Denny McGowan fight and the other one was the Casey Benjamin fight. Kirsty Bavington and Lauren Price, it's going to go the distance, but I don't feel it's going to be hugely competitive. All the other fights are pretty much like showcase fights, so it's not a great card in my personal opinion, but I will be watching. I will be, you know, keeping a keen eye, as I have to for the purpose of the channel. But yeah, if we switch it over to, you know, to Mexico now, so you had John Ryder basically saying that he's prepared diligently for this fight with Canelo, and you know, Canelo doesn't possess anything that he hasn't seen before within a fight. Now that could very well be true, because, you know, John Ryder's had 33, I think, professional fights, maybe a bit more than that. So he's not like he's not some novice fighter. He's a pretty wily vet. Canelo is in the 60s at the moment, coming up, but ultimately Canelo may not have anything he's never seen before, but he's probably got it at a level that he's never seen before, and that's where the intrigue is going to be. Now, that whole press conference, again, it was uneventful in that sense, just because, I mean, the majority of it was in Mexican, apart from when Tony Sims, Eddie Hearn and John Ryder spoke, and then they had a translator translating it to the Spanish media and whatnot. So again, no real need or there, nothing outward to to take from it. The only thing is that, being that Canelo Alvarez is kind of like a pressuring boxer puncher, and John Ryder is a natural pressure fighter, you would say that stylistically Canelo has the advantage. But if John Ryder can stick close to him, not give him the time to set up those shots and keep him having to work, because that could be where he has the most success. There is one quite interesting factor in this fight for me, and even though I'm going to do my prediction video before the weigh-ins tomorrow, the one thing that I'm actually very keen to work out is how John Ryder is going to deal with the altitude there at Guadalajara, because from what I've heard, they even said that fight day 5K they normally like to do, if they do it, is going to be at a very slow pace, because the altitude is really high, is really thick in Jalisco, Mexico. And if that's the case, has John Ryder ever fought at the altitude before? Now look, Canelo normally fights in Vegas and fights in America. So he hasn't fought within the altitude for 12 years, give or take, but he knows the altitude because that's where he used to train, and he used to do his old fights there. So he will kind of know what it's like and how he has to pace himself as a fighter. Will John Ryder know the same thing? And is there a potential chance that he blows up halfway through the fight just through sheer exhaustion, or out of breath, just because he can't gain his breath? He can't process the air the same way that someone who's accustomed to living and breathing there can. That to me would be a very interesting scenario. Like I said, I'm going to give my pick prior to the weigh-in, but me looking at the weigh-in will give me a lot of indications as to whether or not I'm going to put a bet on the fight and how I think the fight will play out. But look, I mean, it's fight week, pretty good fight week. We'll find out. I think we'll find out what kind of numbers that DAZN do for this one. I'm not expecting it to be huge, to be honest. Because Canelo's pretty much doing this whole pay-per-view off the back of his own name. But it will be interesting. I guess it will be then interesting what his next one does, because we still have to talk and continue about this face of boxing talk that we've been stuck in recently. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. Leave your thoughts down below. Like, do you think that these, the press conferences were anything special? Did you know that Buatsi was fighting? Does it matter that you didn't know prior to this week because you know now? What's the most important thing for both guys? Is it to look spectacular? Is it just to get the wins and move on without injury for the next situation? Let me know. Put it all down in the comments below. But thank you very much for watching. Again, like and subscribe, as I said previously. For right now, Hardcore Casual out.